So what if Starfield gets announced at the E3, comes out this November, and actually sucks? Like, what if it is just a bad game? This is a video I've been thinking about making, and before everyone jumps into, oh, you're just clickbaiting, you ran out of video. No, this is just a video I actually want to make. I think it's an interesting concept to explore and actually start a discussion over. It's really easy to get kind of dragged into the E3, or more importantly, the pre-E3 hype, when there's tons of speculation, rumors, news. I'm definitely part of the problem by perpetuating this and creating videos on the topic. I personally think it's really enjoyable to actually speculate and get hyped for E3, but does Bethesda exactly have a great track record going into this E3? No. And yet I feel like so many people are so quick to dismiss that. Maybe people are just being overly hopeful or extremely wishful. But either way, that's something I want to talk about in today's video as to why Starfield may not actually be a great game. Before we do jump into it though, if you guys do like this type of content or Starfield or even Fallout 4 content in general, you can subscribe to this channel. A lot of people watching are actually not subscribed right now. I could actually see in analytics. So if you're interested, you can subscribe. Some of the videos you can expect over the next coming weeks are actually something pretty interesting. A lot of you guys wanted to see it, so I will be making a series of videos like how good can you make Fallout 3 look in 2018, and doing that for Fallout 3, Fallout 4, New Vegas, Skyrim. So expect to see some of those rolling out over the next week or so. In addition, my semester is ending, so I will be doing live streams pretty regularly, almost every single day, starting about the second or third week in May. So you could look forward to that also if you're interested. Either way, let's set the stage for this video. If you don't know what Starfield is, I've made tons of videos talking about it. I'll link one of them at the end of this one or in the description if you're interested in checking out or finding out more about what this game is. For the purposes of this video though, I'm referencing Starfield because so many people suspect it to be the next game, but it doesn't actually matter. When I say Starfield, just think of whatever the next AAA RPG from Bethesda is going to be. It could be a Fallout 5, it could be a The Elder Scrolls 6, whatever. It just seems like Starfield is the most likely right now, and it's what people have been talking so much about. Getting hyped for E3 and Bethesda Game Studios' next AAA RPG is natural. They are an amazing company that makes extremely unique and distinctive games. Yeah, there are other open world games, there are other RPGs out there, but nothing really compares to the formula Bethesda has created. For that reason, I think even if they make a crappy game, a la Fallout 4, a lot of people don't think that's the best game, there's still a ton of enjoyment you could have from that, and by a lot of people's standards, Fallout 4 is a good game, it's just not a good Fallout game, which kind of shows how high the bar they've set for themselves is. Now, that being said, I feel like some people are getting a little carried away with this. If you read online forums, if you read comments on YouTube videos, people are getting really excited for Starfield. And more so than anything else, I hope this video serves as more of a wake-up call, just a be wary. I wouldn't be as excited as a lot of people are because Bethesda Game Studios doesn't exactly have the best track record. Obviously, a lot of this is going to be based on Fallout 4. That's pretty much been what consumed Bethesda for the past 5 to 6 years, including pre-production, production, and actual release and DLC for Fallout 4. For a moment, think back to when Fallout 4 was announced and the days leading up to it with that fake website, what was it, Survivor 2099 or something like that. Everyone was so freaking excited for that game. People were taking time off work to watch the live stream, taking weeks off work to actually get the game on release day and play it. Before making this video, I actually went back to some old Reddit posts that had Fallout 4's announcement trailers and some of the E3 trailers, like our first initial looks at that game. And people are hyped naturally though, because Bethesda is curating these trailers to make the game look awesome, amazing, and extremely enticing. If you read posts nowadays, there's a total shift. A lot of people, especially following Fallout 4's release, like the 6 months to a year after that, thought it was by far the worst iteration in the franchise. I actually made a poll while recording this video, another reason to get subscribed, because you can see some of these YouTube polls. And well, I think the poll largely speaks for itself. I actually don't know what the results will be yet, but I have a very strong inclination that Fallout 4 will be regarded as the worst iteration. So now I think it's important to take this with a grain of salt. I mean, obviously Fallout 4 is the latest, everyone has the nostalgia effect, so Fallout 3 and New Vegas are less remembered, and people will tend to remember the good features of those anyway. But at the same time, to have this massive difference is probably an inclination of something, that something being that most people feel like Fallout 4 is the weakest link in the Fallout franchise, at least the modern games. So why is that? Why do people feel like Fallout 4 is such a weak game? Well, obviously I don't know what everyone else feels like, but for me at least, I feel like it was really casualized, especially when you look at it compared to New Vegas. Fallout 4 sold a lot of copies and made a stupid amount of money. It brought the franchise and Bethesda Game Studios to a whole new level, but that was at a cost. Things like the voice protagonist, the hard block on 4 dialogue choices, the shallow nature and kind of hand-holding that is through most of the quests. And I could go on and on, but there's a lot of features fundamental to the game that turned a lot of people off of it. And maybe if we stopped there, it would be, alright, you know what, they messed up, but hopefully they will learn from their mistakes with Starfield or whatever this next game is going to be. Unfortunately, it doesn't stop there, and I feel like that's where some of my concerns get raised. Following Fallout 4, we got what is probably the weakest set of DLC for any game that Bethesda has ever created. Like, I would say the only two good DLCs to come out of Fallout 4 were the Robot DLC and Nuka World, and this is a franchise that is renowned for having some of the best DLC of any game franchise. They put out tons of workshop and building DLCs that didn't appeal to a massive part of the audience. Most people passed up on those entirely, and until they bought like the Game of the Year edition or bought them super discounted, probably at no point actually took any interest in them. I personally, even being a Fallout 4 or Bethesda YouTuber, never played some of the DLCs because I don't particularly like settlement building. I love its inclusion and I hope it's in the next game, but I don't necessarily want a DLC adding in a ton more stuff that modding kind of did already. And then following that, we got Creation Club, which is another indication of something. I feel like Creation Club and Fallout Shelter are two things that a lot of people feel pretty strongly about. Fallout Shelter less so, but that's a game that's still being pushed. It still gets regular updates, and it more or less is a freemium game working off of a microtransaction model. They want you to buy loot boxes, wait certain amounts of time to refresh your things, and although it basically is a mobile game, although yes, you can get it on PC, it's a mobile game. It's a really good example of what people don't want to see in gaming nowadays, especially on AAA games. Yet some of these games, even some RPGs released recently, are getting features like that. And then moving on to the most recent decisions by Bethesda, that with Creation Club. Creation Club is a massive disappointment. I actually don't even hate it as much as the average person. I think it's a program that could have had a lot of potential. I now feel that ship has sailed. Creation Club is a failure in my eyes. Not a financial failure, but at least the quality of content coming out of that program just isn't really there. It isn't really worth the money a lot of times. There's a few hidden gems here and there, but exactly, there's a few hidden gems. It's not like the content being produced by it overall is great. The point of the segment isn't to bash Fallout 4. What I'm trying to do is create a landscape. This is what Bethesda's been doing over the past 5 years. With that in mind, their new game may be a step forward from it, but is that likely? Do we really think Bethesda is going to remedy all of these issues and learn from all of them and not make the same mistakes a second time? I'm not super confident about that, and that's kind of why I wanted to make this video again. I don't think Bethesda is really coming from a point of a ton of strength. Their past releases and a lot of the stuff they've been doing lately isn't getting me super excited for what they're going to produce next. I am super excited for what they're going to produce next, but mostly because of some of their past successes, things like Skyrim and Fallout 3. Like, the reality is, most likely Creation Club's gonna appear on Starfield. Whether or not it's going to appear at launch is a different story, but maybe all of the DLC we get through Starfield will be through Creation Club. Maybe there isn't going to be a season pass or anything like that. It's just going to be you buy Creation Club credits, and now there's going to be these larger DLCs you can buy with those credits. I don't know that. I don't know if it's confirmed, but that's definitely plausible, and you know, that's not really something I want. I feel like it's kind of morbid realities like this that people aren't taking into consideration with their Starfield hype, and I think they actually should be. To summarize, what I'm saying here is I think Bethesda Game Studios is coming off of one of their weakest game releases. Taking that into account with some of the other decisions they've been making, the continued support for Fallout Shelter, the extremely lackluster nature of the Fallout 4 DLC, and of course, the creation and continued support of Creation Club. I made a video really recently talking about how Fallout 4 has largely turned into The Sims, or at least the DLC structure has, and most of that is thanks to Creation Club. Is Bethesda going to continue to do that? Are we going to see something similar in Starfield? I think it's important to keep things like this in the back of your head when getting into the Starfield hype. Yes, hopefully it's an amazing game, hopefully it's the perfect game that we are all hoping for, but realistically it won't be. I think controlling your own hype and not getting overly excited is going to be the key to not being massively disappointed at this game announcement. If you have zero expectations, you really can't be disappointed, but you still can be pleasantly surprised. That's the mentality I'm adopting going into Starfield based off Bethesda's previous decisions. So with that, it's pretty much going to wrap it up for this video, but before we conclude things, I actually do want to share with you a psych fun fact and something that's somewhat relevant to some of the stuff I just talked about, and I think something you'll find pretty interesting. What I'm going to be talking about is the Net Promoter Score. So what this is more or less a measure of customer loyalty. It was developed by this guy named Reichheld in 2003. He wrote for the Harvard Business Review, and more or less he made an article saying the one number you need to grow, like as a company, is created to reflect the relationship between a customer and a business, but nowadays it's actually used highly to just see what customer sentiment is about a certain thing, whether that be for a business as a whole or realistically on an individual product or thing like the premiere of Westworld Season 2. How did people react back to that premiere episode? What is the sentiment on that? So it actually calculates this based on your likelihood to recommend this. So if you ever used an app before, you probably see that little pop-up. How likely are you to recommend this to a friend or colleague? It's super common, and actually just to delve a little bit deeper into that, something really interesting, the way this is handled internally is if you score something a 6 or lower, it's considered a negative and you don't like it. Neutral is going to be 7 or 8, and a 9 and 10 is the positive. Most people would probably say, oh, maybe a 6 or 7 is a neutral and then 8, 9, 10 is a positive, but no, that's actually not the way these are handled internally. Again, not super relevant, but I just thought it'd be interesting to share. But the crazy part about this is nowadays, the way companies are calculating the score is listening to you on social media. So this is less like your phone or webcam is listening to you and more that they actually just go onto Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, different forums, and will rank different keywords associated with your account. So like, let's say I watch Westworld Season 2, Episode 1, and I say, hey, Westworld Season 2, Episode 1 was amazing. It's going to take this for millions of people on Twitter, put them all into an algorithm, and actually depending on how many followers you have, you're weighted differently. Since I probably have a slightly above average number of followers, I'll be weighted more heavily, and my opinions weighted more heavily in this sentiment analysis as they actually calculate the NPS score. This is generalized even further because they'll typically take this data and allow it to influence how they create further products or TV shows, whatever it may be. So if everyone hated Season 1, Episode 1, they'll realize, all right, we got to do something differently for Season 3, Episode 1. It's like one of those things that intuitively you'd probably be like, yeah, that probably happens, but actually learning about it and seeing how this actually works is just pretty crazy. Either way, that's pretty much going to wrap it up for this video. It was a little bit of a longer one, but I know some of you guys do enjoy that. As always, I thank you again for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you all next time. Later.